Welcome to the Primo's Musings podcast.
All right. Good evening. I know we're a little late in the night. Welcome, Mr. Dan. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good to
All
join
right.
you.
All right. We're just wrapped up the French Open tennis, and we pivot very quickly before we get to Wimbledon in tennis to one of the signature, I would say, golf tournaments in the world, the 2024 U.S. Open, which is going to be at Pinehurst Resort and Country Club. They're going to host the U.S. Open for the first time since 2014. So let's hear your thoughts on the favorites. And like we always do, we both pick our favorites to win, and then we pick our dark horse, and then we reassess who's going to win it all sometime before the Sunday round. So I'm going to give you the floor, Dan. Go ahead and give your take on the U.S. Open. And before we get to that, I didn't want to say, like, we had Scottie Scheffler winning the Masters, obviously, and then we had Xander, who's world number 2 right now, who won the second major of the year in the PGA. So we're the third major, so the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, a little background on Pinehurst. I've been, listening to a lot of the Golf Channel this week and just, getting some insights into Pinehurst and just a quick overview. Like you said, Pinehurst has hosted 3 previous U.S. Opens. 1999 was the most famous of the 3, one of the most famous majors you could make a case for. That it was a final round battle between Payne Stewart. It was the late Payne Stewart. Unfortunately, he passed away when his plane depressurized. Him and I think 3 others passed away. So it was a final round battle between Payne and Phil Mickelson, and there's now a famous statue on the grounds of Payne Stewart doing his famous fist pump when his putt went down to win it, I think on 18. So that was 99. They had it again, I believe, in I think 2005 with a relatively unknown, I believe Michael Campbell, I think was his name, who won it from, I want to say he's New Zealand is where he's from. He had a relative unknown. He was a qualifier at the time. They said, he was a world qualifier. He qualified from not one of the U.S. Open qualifying sites, but one of the international qualifying sites. That's how he got his qualifier into the U.S. Open, and he ended up winning it. And then in 2014, Martin Keimer, who's he had a couple good years. I think he either won or contended for a PGA championship as well. The German, he's now with the Live Tour. So he's the relative. We haven't heard much from him really in the last 8 or 9 years. So you could make a case that 3, relative, I wouldn't say relative unknowns, but players who aren't, top 10 all-timers, that won the Pinehurst before. So I don't know if that's what that means for this tournament, if we're going to have someone sneak in there from, outside the top 20 at top 30, or if we're going to get one of our favorites. So now kind of moving on to things, starting to do our picks. First of all, from what I've heard this week, they're saying this course is really diabolical as far as the greens. The greens are all kind of tortoise shaped, meaning that if you don't hit your spots with your irons perfectly, if you don't hit your yardages within plus or minus, say 3 or 4 yards, that ball's going to roll off the backside, and you'll be chipping on or putting on from off the green, trying to now hold the greens that are lightning fast. So it's basically what they're saying is that this is a second ball course, meaning the players who can strike their irons the best, who have great iron control, are the ones who are going to fare well, most likely, at this tournament. They're saying that putting is not going to make or break this tournament. Obviously, you're going to have to make some birdies, but it's going to be, I think, the bogeys that really cost you. So making par is going to be a premium this tournament, meaning getting your ball on the green in regulation and then getting your 2-putt. A number probably around 3 or 4 under is probably going to win this tournament, they're saying. It's not going to be a 20 under like we saw at Valhalla at the PGA. It's going to be a very different. U.S. Open is usually set up that way. Like I said, this course doesn't have crazy rough that they're going to grow out. It's more like a South Carolina low country course, a lot of sand, off the fairways. But the greens are what make this course so tough. So on to some of my picks. Can I pick Scheffler again? Am I allowed to do that?
I mean, you're getting the first cut at it, so you can go with Scheffler if you want to.
I mean, So like I said, I think he would have won at Valhalla at the PGA if not for I mean, I can't even say, like you said, it was the crazy whole scenario with the arrest that cost him that. It might have been he still shot well that day. It was the next day, still where his caddy was not with him because he had to attend his child's high school graduation. So that's when he had his bad day on Saturday when he shot himself out of that tournament. Um, and then we saw him bounce back last week at the Memorial. His first time, I think, back playing a tournament since his child was born. And he won. It was a close final round against Morikawa, but the Memorial was kind of set up like a major as far as huge, really difficult rough, put a premium on good driving and good ball striking, and he prevailed in that tournament. So he's now won 5 tournaments before the U.S. Open. Even that's never been done by Jack, never been done by Tiger. 5 tournaments before the U.S. Open, they said. So this is kind of unprecedented, uncharted waters we're in right now with Scottie. Um, and the 5 tournaments that he's won have all been like you can't call them all majors, but they've all been the Masters plus every other tournament's been an elevated field tournament where you have all the top 50 players
with the Wells
basically.
Fargo, he won the Wells Fargo, he won the Memorial,
the Players Championship, which is basically a major, the 5th major, and then he won at Hilton Head, which is a elevated event where you had all the top players playing in that event as well. So he's not like he's winning tournaments with lesser fields. He's taking on the PGA's best and beating them. So he's won 5 huge tournaments already this year. And the way he drives the ball, so high, so accurately, so straight. And his iron play is the best of anyone in the world, as far as proximity to the hole. His putting is good now. Putting's still not great, but his putting's no longer a Achilles heel like it was the last year or two. Ever since switching putters back early in the season, he's been a very good putter. Maybe probably top 15, top 20 stats. So I think my pick to win it all is still Scheffler. I think it's going to be it's his to lose. So I don't know if you want to do your favorite, then we'll do our our whatever we call them, less sleeper picks, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, I think you gave some good information about the some of the history for Pinehurst. A couple of things that I did read in an article earlier today. Everybody knows that Pebble Beach has the Pacific Ocean, but Pinehurst, they call it number 2, they call it the cereal bowls turned upside down. So the greens are like the signature, of all this Donald Ross course. And then they go by a variety of names from what I heard. So I just wanted to throw it out there. Upside down cereal bowls, inverted saucers, turtlebacks, or domes. So they're pretty daunting, as you just mentioned. And the U.S. Open has always been the toughest test in golf. And I did hear one of the comments from Wyndham Clark, who said, "You hit the green, the hole's not done yet." So, and I think he already said it's like borderline in terms of fairness. So I think there's already like you can see, like, I mean, golfers don't typically make excuses, but that's something that everybody talks. And you mentioned, Payne Stewart. It's a 15-foot par on the final hole to beat Phil Mickelson at 1 under par, and so there you go about how difficult this course is going to be. I think, some of the things that I heard also was that, some of the best players here play very aggressive off the tee and very conservative on the greens. And that's the strategy that's going to be going in on all the 4 days. So since you asked me who are my pick, because you already picked Scottie Scheffler. So I think, because I did talk about world number 2, that was Xander. I did think about Xander earlier today, but I am actually going to go with Koepka as my pick to win the U.S. Open.
Wow.
I think it's a very strange pick. I mean, I think he's still one of the best players, but they just played. The PGA was just recently, so it's not like some of the Live Tour players haven't played on major courses. So I think Koepka is my pick to win it. I think it's when you look at it, Scottie is the favorite. When you looked at some of the odds to win the U.S. Open, obviously Rory's name always comes into play. even though he hasn't won in 10 years. Morikawa, who finished second in the Memorial. Victor Hovland, who I always pick in one of our older picks. Uh, I was thinking about DeChambeau, but I'm going to stay with Koepka as my pick to win the U.S. Open.
Okay. I mean, that's an interesting pick. Yes. He's got more major. He's got what, five majors already. So he's obviously a great player. He gets his, he gets his juices flowing for these majors. Something lights, he gets the inner fire going when it comes to these majors. So he can definitely turn it on and flick the switch. He's been struggling a little bit this year. I think he hasn't fared great at the majors this season. I know last year he did. He won the PGA and he had a good Masters finish. Him and Rahm are in the final group at the Masters last year, final twosome. But no, you can never go wrong with picking Koepka. He's always gonna, potentially contend, and he just loves the majors and he gets up for them. So not a bad pick. We'll see how that plays out. I have one other. So I'll go with one other pick that's not necessarily far from a sleeper, and then I'll give you one sleeper. I'm not sure if you mentioned his name when you were discussing players who you got to look out for. Morikawa would be my other possible. He's turned around this season. I don't know how many tournaments he's won or if he's won one, to be honest. But he's contended. He's been top 5 at so many events this whole season. He was runner up last week at the Memorial. I think he was very close at the Players possibly this year, and I think he's had decent showings at both the PGA and the Masters. He's
the fourth best favorite right now when you look at it. Scottie Scheffler, Xander. Rory. Like I said, I'm shocked at that name. And then Morikawa and DeChambeau, and then I always pick this guy as my sleeper, Ludwig Aberg.
But you like him.
I'm going to stay away from that this time. And you know what? You picked Morikawa, so you know what? I picked Koepka. You know what? I know you said I can never pick Rory as a sleeper, but he hasn't won in 10 years.
I'll give you. Well, as you can do as your second pick, you can take Rory as your. We'll give you we'll do 2 picks and then a sleeper third. Our third will be a sleeper. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do. I'm going to do Koepka and Rory.
Koepka and Rory. All right.
Okay, and then you got Scottie and Morikawa. Okay, and then let's go to the sleeper right now. I was thinking about it. It's very interesting that Matsuyama's name is actually pretty high up on the odds to win.
Yeah.
And then even Cameron Smith, and some names that we haven't heard in a while, like Tommy Fleetwood. That's the name.
Yeah, he's always good at the majors. Fleetwood definitely is.
And Max Homa. So you know what? I'm going to go with Max Homa. Your guy, your UCLA guy. As my sleeper pick from the U.S. Open.
I like that. We just put a little bit of money on DraftKings on Homa, and it would pay 50 to 1 odds. We put $20 on it, so that'd be a nice $1,000 payday if that comes true. So I hope you're right with Homa. I know he's an LA boy. I don't know if he's UCLA. We have to fact check that one. I know Cantley's a UCLA boy, but Homa is an LA guy. But regardless, he's a good ball striker. That's a possibility. For my sleeper, I'm going to go with actually Satif Tagala, who I think you picked at the Masters this year as one of your picks. And no, he's been good there. He's up there on the list in draft. He's probably I think he's at 45 to 1 to win it, but he's probably top 15 in the odds list. He's I think top 10 on the FedEx money list this year. He's always right around the top 10 in most of these tournaments. Great ball striker. That's what you need. This guy who can stick the irons at this tournament. Premium on, like I said, on making them on greens and regulation. That's the key at this tournament. And he's definitely a good iron player. So I've got Scottie Scheffler to win it with Morikawa as my second pick, and then Tagala as a sleeper.
And I think just a correction here, and you're right, we did get our stats guy check. I think he did play golf at University of California, Berkeley.
Oh, Berkeley, that's what I thought.
So you're right, he's from LA, but he didn't go to UCLA. So I stand corrected there. So it was very good stat guy who came back very quickly. Thanks to Google. Uh, anyway, so that's where we are now. We always do this during every major, the Phil and Tiger, um, and it's been years since Tiger's made the cut. It's been years since Phil has actually did well last year, but he's not been relevant. But apart from Tiger and Phil, who are the other interesting players that you want to see good? Because usually we do the Phil and Tiger, so we're going to keep the Phil and Tiger discussion because I think they have not been relevant in the last uh, two majors and even in the last few tournaments. I mean, Tiger's hardly played, and I know there was a lot of videos on Twitter I saw with Tiger coming in earlier at Pinehurst, but that's only because he's a champion and things like that.
Yeah.
But who do you think are the other players that you'd be more interested in watching this year who can definitely make some noise during this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, a couple other names that I would want to follow and that could make a difference in this tournament. I think still Victor Hovland. I think we got to keep an eye on him. Like we said in our last podcast prior to the PGA, he kind of disappeared this season. He's really struggled. He was even thinking about, I think, withdrawing from the PGA a few weeks prior because he was really struggling. He just wanted to work with his coach, but he ended up entering and having a really good tournament. I believe he was right there on the final day of the PGA Championship. He didn't do great at the Memorial last week. He kind of dropped off the leaderboard over the weekend. But he's someone who, the way he finished the season last year with at the FedEx Cup, winning everything there, someone we got to watch. Obviously, I'm just curious to see how he performed and what kind of shape his game is in, because U.S. Open will give you the best litmus test of your game of any of the courses, of any of the majors. So Hovland, and then Bryson's always interesting. Just because Bryson, he's got all the talent in the world, and he's just he just moves the needle out there with all his comments and his, the way he plays and the way he changed the game a few years back with his power. And Bryson had that great showing at the PGA where he was right there on the 18th hole until Schauffele sunk the putt on 18 to win it. The one criticism I've heard of Bryson, as far as his people not liking his chances at the U.S. Open, though, were that his iron control still isn't great. He got up and down a lot at the PGA to save a lot of the holes, and you're not going to get up and down at this course. They said if you miss the greens here, which his iron distance control can be a little spotty at times, and his wedge game can be a little spotty. You're not going to get up and down at this course. They said it's just if you don't stick the green and hold it, you're not going to get up and down with the speed of these greens here. That was the criticism of Bryson, but I am interested to watch him just because of what he's an interesting guy to watch from a TV perspective. So Bryson and Hovland, and then Cam Smith would be my third one. I like to watch. He was a fun guy to watch the last few years when he played on PGA. Obviously, we haven't seen him since he's transitioned to Live Tour, but he's a great ball striker. He's a great short game player. He gets up and down with the best of them, and a very good putter too. So. He's someone who I want to keep my eye on as well. So Cam Smith, Hovland, and Bryson are three guys I kind of want to just see how they do and may have a chance.
Yeah. Before I get to my, who do I want to see? Like one would be definitely Matsuyama. I mean, I think he's actually played pretty well. He actually played very well in even the Memorial Tournament. The one player who won't be here, I think we didn't even mention his name. Ex-Masters champion John Rahm, and that was a shocker. I mean, I didn't expect that he would.
And ex-US Open winner too. He won at Torrey Pines. That was his first tournament. Yeah, a couple years back.
Exactly. Yeah. So to me, it would be Deki Matsuyama that I do want to see him do well. The other guy I do want to see do well would be Jordan Spieth, because I haven't seen him really do well at in a long time. And he came in and he won many, and a lot of people did say that he was going to be, he would get to like very highly, very like 5-6 majors very quickly, but it hasn't come to fruition. And the other one would be some other major champions like Wyndham Clark, because I think that's somebody who has kind of fallen off the radar a little bit. I mean, since last year. So those are the three guys I would like to see uh, do well. Matsuyama, Spieth, and Wyndham Clark. And that I'll be following them, closely, just because of their past history, past major champions too. So um, that's where we are. And I think, like I said, it's very rare that we don't go through the Tiger Phil thing. But we just wish them the best to see if they can make the cut. That's all I can say. I
Yep.
don't see them. I don't see them making the cut. I mean, I don't see Tiger making the cut. But I think that's where we are in terms of U.S. Open. It's going to be very interesting. Actually, for amateur golfers like us, this is where we actually see these players look very, very human. Like you said, it's not going to be the -20 that we'll see in the Travelers next week. Hopefully, I'll get to watch Scottie Scheffler there, but um, it's going to be very interesting watching them struggle around the green. So I think that's where the interest level is, and that's why I always like watching the U.S. Open, whether it was like the Whistling Straits many years ago, um, or or even like Pinehurst before. So I think it's going to be fun just watching these players, try to master the scores or try to even understand the scores. So there you are. Okay. All right. Any last minute, uh, you know,
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said wholeheartedly. I think it's just can they tame this course? That's the question. The U.S. Open is the one course all year at the majors where the it's kind of like the greenskeeper revenge. It's the where the it's the USGA's turn to try to their challenge is always to try to keep the score as low down as possible. Usually a score just a few. It used to be that I remember so many opens in the past, you'd see a winning score of -1 or -2. And it's kind of nice to see that every once in a while. It's kind of like watching a pitcher's duel, 0-0 baseball game. It's not all offense. So, it's nice to see these players humbled a little bit too. So often they post huge scores and, they seem like gods out there, but it's nice to see when as long as it's fair, as long as, they can, a couple of years ago, they said at Shinnecock, the course got away from the greenskeepers where it was just so hot and so fast. And I remember there was a play where Phil, I remember on the green, he just started batting the ball around, took a penalty. He was so irritated by how unfair the greens were. So as long as they keep it fair and make it so it's playable, but still really a test of the player's ability, then I think it'll be fun to watch, and hopefully we get treated to a good final Father's Day round on Sunday. So happy Father's Day to all the fathers and to you
all right.
out
Thank
there.
you so much. Same to you too, Dan. And I think the good thing is like when you're talking about Phil, I was I was smiling because it actually makes us really happy to see these guys struggle. And when they get frustrated, it makes like normal golfers like us, when I go and play my home course, Gillette, and I get the same feeling as what Phil does from time to time.
Yeah.
All right. So looking forward to, I think, the golf, like you said, and happy Father's Day to everybody. And thank you, Dan. All right.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening. Primo will be back soon.